Good afternoon, everyone. I hope this post finds us doing really well. We're up to number 25 in this marriage covenant between a husband and a wife. And in this area, we're going to be talking about sexual connection or sexual or physical intimacy. This can be a topic that we can be afraid to talk about in Christendom, but I very much believe it's a topic that needs to be discussed. We need to unpack, we need to get clear expectations through communication and really work together into what both couple are looking for, what they're expecting, and being able to share their intimate needs with one another without the feel of embarrassment or shame, because this is a big area, whether we like it or not. Physical intimacy, sexual intercourse, and foreplay is a very big area that comes into being in any relationship. And so it's essential that as followers of Christ, we're open and able to talk about these things. And so I want us to unpack this in part number 25. So I want to start by asking this question: how important is physical intimacy to you? How important is this area of touch? How important is this area of foreplay? How important is this area of romance and creating opportunities where romance can be experienced and the enjoyment of a physical relationship with another the way God has designed it? Holding, touching, caressing are all things that go into making up a physical, healthy, growing relationship. And it is, obviously we've said not all, but it is a part, and it is a significant part of us having healthy, growing relationships with one another. So I believe it's essential, just like in all the other areas of the marriage covenant, that we are equally yoked in this area as well as a husband and a wife. This is where we need open and honest communication. It's required of both the husband and of the wife in relation to this area, preferably before we get married, while we're married as well, but preferably before we get married, so we can have these conversations entering into this marriage covenant with a clear expectation, knowing that we are equally yoked, not just in this area, but in all areas, knowing that we're going to work things out as we get married, because things do change and shift. And anyone that's been married for a decent number of time will know that. Things grow, things change, and the goal is we grow and we change together. We're not to presume anything in any of these areas that we're looking at, especially in this area. And being able to discuss what one is open to, what one is not open to, or what one needs or doesn't need, what one likes or doesn't like, what one finds exciting and possibly pleasurable or not, is all part of the development of a healthy physical sexual relationship built on the values of love, trust, and respect. And I personally believe that many relationships struggle in this area of intimacy, physical intimacy, because of a lack of honesty and healthy communication before a couple gets married, and even while they are married. And fear can play a significant part through insecurity in being able to develop an ability to share these types of things. And even the fear of being shameful or disgusting can come up. And so we keep these things down instead of realizing that God has created this relationship, and God has created sex to be pleasurable through his design. And so it's important that we're able to share honestly and openly without the fear of insecurity or those things I've mentioned. We need to become comfortable within ourselves as followers of Jesus in this area of sexual pleasure. As I've said, God has designed our bodies for this kind of pleasure within the context of marriage. And this dimension leads to a greater emotional connection as a couple. And I encourage all couples to have an exciting sex life where things don't become boring or just status quo. I think the ability to mix things up and keep things fresh is all part of maintaining a healthy physical connection. I do believe staying attractive for your partner physically and not letting things go is also a key part of any relationship. You know, we tend to get slack in areas of our relationship because we get complacent, because we think, well, I no longer have to work at this, I've got the person. And I think that's a fatal mistake that many make. One of the things that Danny and I have said, that we're going to stay attractive physically to one another, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. We're going to make a commitment in all those 4 areas to stay attractive to one another and be real and real with one another. And so I think, unfortunately, we can get a bit boring and get predictable, losing our spark. And I think this is where things can start to become shaky and on shaky ground. So these are some of the warning signs that if we don't address these things as a husband and wife, we might unfortunately start looking outside of our covenant. And of course, this is disastrous and really can be avoided. So another thing is, sex should never be used as a negotiation tool, excuse me, or a way to get what one wants in other areas. This is nothing short of manipulation and blackmail, and it is not becoming of a follower of Jesus. The scriptures also talk about not depriving one another in this area, so Satan will not tempt us due to a lack of self-control. And that's in 1 Corinthians 7 verse 5. It says, stop depriving one another, except by agreement for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer and come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. You know, we're brought up in a world today where everything is visual. There are sexual images everywhere. You open up your phone, the sexual imagery on there. You drive around the city, the sexual imagery there on the TV screen. We are bombarded with sexual imagery, and these things can lead to certain acts of behavior and take us to places. So it's really important that we work together. We're able to be open and honest with our husband or our wife and really help one another in this area of sexual temptation and meet each other's needs, so we live a life of contentment in this area, but also in all areas in Christ. You know, the way we've been brought up can play a massive part in our ability to relate and communicate in this area as well, where we don't shy away in embarrassment or a sense of awkwardness or even shame from having these conversations. This is going to require work on both parts, the husband and the wife's. It must be a mutual thing that we both take responsibility for, and sowing seeds of life into our relationship, and it not just being responsible of one person. You know, don't ever assume anything. Be someone that's always looking to sow seeds in the area of romance, in the area of physical touch, in the area of telling and sharing, hey, I love you, and this is what I really appreciate about you. Create those nights, ladies. Create those nights, men. Be romantic. If that's not part of your natural DNA, then I encourage you to just start to try. Make an effort. It will say so much to your husband or your wife as you start to try. Try a massage. Use a bit of oil. Just put your arm around the other person and just tell them how much you love them. You know, those little things go a long way. I want to encourage you to be willing to explore together different ideas and get creative in how things may look in the present and in the future, within obviously the consent of both people. But make things exciting and keep things alive in your relationship. Go away. I know I've taken Danny away a few times, just not for any special occasion, but just booked a trip to Auckland, and we went to one of the islands and just went zip lining and went to the tower and had dinner and booked into a really nice hotel. And you know, she's done the same for me, where we keep it exciting, we keep it alive, and we surprise each other, and it's fun and it's enjoyment. And God's into these sorts of things because he's into, and as I've said before, he's created us to enjoy this area, the sexual pleasured area. And so be willing to explore new things, but do it in the context of what both people are comfortable with. So be able to say, no, I don't like this, or I'm uncomfortable with this, and may your partner respect that. And so learn together and grow together. A passionate relationship is a healthy relationship. And all this goes into being significant in a long-term, significant marriage. And so I pray this encourages you. I pray it might release you and gives you some ideas on how to start in this area if you find this a little bit awkward. But questions, why is open and clear communication so important in this area of our marriage? What can be some of the consequences of not having these kinds of discussions? Why is sexual intercourse intercourse just as much about pleasure than it is about producing life? And how important is a healthy sexual relationship to you, and why? We'll look forward to seeing you in part number 26, but I really hope this helps us, and so we'll see you soon.